All right, guys. Thank you all for coming, and whoever's on VC, thank you very much as well. I wanted to introduce you all to Dr. Jordan Metzl. He's here today to talk about his book, The Athlete's Book of Home Remedies. It's a terrific companion book for you guys to make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself like I did. But he's going to be here today to talk about all of his tricks and wizardry. But I want to read you the dedication to the book. This book is dedicated to the millions of athletes who wake up each morning at 5:30 with no fanfare and drag themselves out of bed to keep fit. Whatever your level or ability, may the information in this book help you pursue your goals. The most important thing you can do every day is to keep moving forward. So without that, and without further introduction, I want to introduce you to, and it is his birthday, so please be gentle on him, Dr. Jordan Metzl.
Thanks. Rich, thanks so much, and it's great to see everybody. What a cool place. I mean, I feel like I'm not nearly cool enough to be here, but it's a pleasure to be here, down to Google. I take care of a lot of you guys when you hurt yourselves up at my office, and it's a pleasure to be down here and people conferenced in out in California, wherever else you are. The concept we're going to talk about today is how to keep yourselves moving and active and injury-free. So with that, I'm going to talk about this, which is about a 3-year project I did called Athlete's Book of Home Remedies. The concept being that I want you to stay active every day of your lives, starting now, for as long as you go. And so we'll talk about some of the themes about that. First thing is my website here, which is available. Have about 5 years. For the last 5 years, I've been doing the medical column for Triathlete magazine. Have pretty much one-pagers on everything related to running, endurance, sport, anything shin splints, bonking, knee pain, and those are all kind of free. I also have a number of videos available on my site, and there's a newsletter we put out about 4 times a year. We don't send your email to anybody, so no spam, I promise. So your guys' spam filter is pretty good, so I don't think it matters anyway. But certainly happy to have you guys sign up. There's a little registration tab, and we'll be happy to have you. Now, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, and that is that exercise is very much medicine. Exercise keeps you going, exercise keeps you young, it keeps you healthy, and I want you to exercise every day. Now, part of that is what do you do to make that happen? So this is a picture of me at the Ironman several years ago. I try and do 1 marathon and 1 Ironman a year, and for those of you who don't do Ironman, you don't have to do the Ironman, but if you're interested, it's about a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon. And the first question is, why the hell would you do that? And the answer is that I deeply believe, number 1, in goal setting, and number 2, that basically, in addition to needing a goal, everybody needs something which pushes them further than they think they should go. And yes, fitness is a great thing to think about in theory, but without a goal to do that, it's very difficult to make yourself take that next step. So if your goal is doing a big swim, doing a ballroom dance competition, doing a 5K walk in the park, whatever it is you want to do, the goal of you should set a goal for yourself. So we're going to talk about how you meet your goal. And I always have this is actually my screensaver at work. For example, this morning, just to try and get down here, I had about 15 patients in the office. The last guy was like, dude, I've got to go to my thing. I'm late. Come on. He started yelling at my nurses. Well, I don't get many of that in New York, but every once in a while I do. And then I just look at this and I'm like, all right, this was mile 17 of the run. I'd already done the swim, the bike. It was about 90 degrees. The sun was going down. And I was like, I got 6 miles to go. I'm going to finish this thing. And most importantly, my brother, Jamie, who I do this with, is about a mile behind me. And I'm going to beat that guy for the first time ever. So I was pretty psyched about it. And so that was my goal. And so I think the concept of this kind of stuff is it gives you some place in your own psyche of like, I'm having a tough day at work. I'm having a tough time in my life, and yet this is a goal that I've been doing. So I deeply believe in that stuff. So I think the concept was actually outlined by the Roman poet Juvenal many thousands of years ago, who talked about it should be prayed that in the mind be sound in a sound body. So corpora mens sana and corpore sano, sound mind and a sound body. They go together. And here in this great environment where you guys have created such an incredible workspace to be creative and think about things. I know in the place out in California, there's exercise facilities as part of what you do out there. You're all encouraged to be active and healthy, and that's part of a healthy mind. And so I think these things go together very much, and so I applaud you for the way you've set that up. Let's look at the United States. 1985 in the United States, states reporting 10 to 14% obesity are in the darker blue, less than 10% in the lighter blue. Let's look at the United States. 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. Now darker blue, 15 to 19%, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. Now greater than 20%, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, greater than 25% obesity. 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, now greater than 30% obesity in the Southeast. 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. So basically, if you want to be thin, move to Colorado. That's the bottom line of this. But as you can see, we've had this march of obesity across our country. And this is an epidemic affecting everybody. And part of the problem with the way we set up our healthcare in the United States, and you've been following this, we're going to hear some more about this in the next day or two from the Supreme Court, but we have a fundamental flaw in the way we do business in the United States. And that is that our system, which spends billions of dollars, more than about 15, 16% of GDP, estimated to go up to 17, 18%, the problem is we treat disease. So if you come in to see somebody with a heart problem and you come in for your annual visit, they put you on medication, that's paid for by your insurance company. Then it goes on over time and you need several tests, that's paid for by your insurance. You get a catheterization, that's paid for. You eventually get open heart surgery, that's paid for. Your cardiac rehab, that's paid for. Yet we spend almost no money paying to prevent the problem before it happens. And so we have this concept of incentivizing disease treatment. We basically treat and pay for disease, which is totally counterintuitive. Now, we do some great things in America, like companies like this, but we do have some problems in the way we think about things. In Germany, for example, if you have a cavity, you have to go every 6 months to the dentist. And if you have a cavity and you've been going to the dentist every 6 months, the state pays for your cavity. If you have a cavity and you've not been going to your annual 6-month checkups, you have to pay for your own cavity. And so the concept of incentivizing good health behavior makes a ton of sense, yet we really don't do it. So since our government chooses to incentivize things like home ownership or marriage or kids, we incentivize different behaviors just based on our tax code. And we're not at the place yet where we incentivize wellness, though I hope we are at some point. At this point, the responsibility is all of yours and all of yours out there. And so you have to think about incentivizing wellness because exercise is very much medicine. So with that, I'm going to show you why the case for medicine is so significant with this great video, which I brought along for you guys, particularly because I know you'll appreciate how this is done. So we'll just look at this for a couple minutes to kind of then get to the basis of what the book is about. Now, on this, there it is down there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Evans, and welcome to this visual lecture I'm calling 23 and a half hours.
Any suggestions back there? All
All
right, hold on. I want this to work so badly. I'm going to just minimize this. We were having some technical issues. Let's watch this quickly on this thing. This will enlarge that? Yep.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Evans, and welcome to this visual lecture I'm calling 23 and a half hours. So I have a big interest in preventive medicine, which can mean a lot of things from, cancer screening to eating more fiber to having a good social network. And I mean that in the old sense of the word. Weighing less, drinking less, smoking less, controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. So all of these things are incredibly important, and I wouldn't want you to minimize your efforts in any one category. But I want to know what comes first. What has the biggest impact? What has the biggest return on investment? What makes the biggest difference to your health? So I did my research, and I found an answer, at least for me, and it's tricky because, all these things are sort of overlapping. But I picked out this intervention, and because of its breadth, it worked for so many different health problems, and that's what I found so cool about it. So just to kind of walk you through a quick list. So this intervention in patients with knee arthritis who receive 1 hour of treatment 3 times a week reduced their rates of pain and disability by 47%. In older patients, it reduced progression to dementia and Alzheimer's by around 50%. For patients at high risk of diabetes and coupled with other lifestyle interventions, it reduced progression to frank diabetes by 58%. Postmenopausal woman who had 4 hours a week of the treatment had a 41% reduction in the risk of hip fracture. It reduced anxiety by 48% in a big meta-analysis. Patients suffering from depression, 30% were relieved with low dose, and that bumped to 47% as we increased the dose. Following over 10,000 Harvard alumni for over 12 years, those that had the intervention had a 23% lower risk of death than those who didn't get the treatment. It's the number one treatment of fatigue, and of course, the kind of outcome of choice there, my favorite outcome is quality of life, which is really all of the above and really about making your life better. And this treatment has been shown over and over again to improve quality of life. So the question is, what's the medicine, and what is 23 and a half hours? So the medicine was exercise, mostly walking, so not triathlons. And let me just put it a different way. I think what I'm asking you to do is, if you think about your typical day, so there's 24 hours, and so you might spend most of your day, this varies obviously, but couch surfing, sitting at work, obviously sleeping. And what the evidence that I'm going to show you kind of tells me is the best thing you can do for your health is to spend half an hour being active, maybe an hour, and that if you can do that, you can realize all the benefits I've described in the previous slides. So let's just take a quick walk through some of the literature. So Stephen Blair, he's a professor at the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina, and he looked at this in what's called the Aerobic Center Longitudinal Study, which followed over 50,000 men and women over time. And along the left side of this graph is something called attributable fractions, which is a kind of fancy word, but it's the estimate of the number of deaths in a population that would have been avoided if that specific risk factor had been erased. So, for example, turning a smoker into a non-smoker, or a couch potato into a daily walker. And along the bottom is the typical risk factors. You can see the hypertension is incredibly important, and so on and so forth. But the one that kind of applied the most risk was this sort of mysterious CRF, which is cardiorespiratory fitness, which is really low fitness. So low fitness was the strongest predictor of death. And this is important. Most of the trials we see, to be honest, are funded by pharma or other companies because they've got a drug for hypertension or high cholesterol or diabetes. And we rarely see fitness thrown into the mix. And so it's nice to see a trial that's not so siloed.
The concepts of that I think are very helpful, and I apologize if I may have to switch back and forth here a couple of times. This was made. Our hospital does not support iBook yet, so unfortunately I had to do this on my old Dell. All right, so we're going to talk about what I do now. So hopefully I've convinced you that you got to move. You got to move every day, and it's going to be helpful for you. It's going to be helpful for everybody around you. It's going to be helpful for your job, for your life, for everything that you do. That you'll set some goals for yourselves and make that happen. Now let's talk about some of the pitfalls of what you do, and so you don't get hurt. And then at the end, I have promised I will answer your injury questions. So I'm sure we have plenty of runners and people with plantar fasciitis and iliotibial band syndrome, et cetera, here. And you get to ask your questions as soon as you're done listening to this stuff. All right, so what's my job? Well, my job is basically to make sure people make good decisions about their fitness and activity. And I took this picture when I was out giving a lecture in Wyoming last summer. And so I was out in Jackson, Wyoming, and I saw some bright lights down the road. And in fact, there was a rodeo down there. So I walked down there. I'm like, all right, I live in New York City, but I can appreciate a good rodeo probably as much as the next guy. And they had like the horses and the bulls and all that stuff. But the next night I went back there, actually, I saw the demolition derby the first night. The second night, they had one pen full of kids and one pen full of sheep. And my immediate thought was, whatever combination these two things are going to combine is probably not going to be a good combination. And in fact, they would take one kid, put a bicycle helmet on this kid, and put him on top of it, or her on top of a sheep, put a rope around the sheep, open the gate, and they had this Wyoming fan favorite called mutton bustin'. And no kids were harmed in the making of this slide. But basically, these poor kids are holding on for dear life between kind of 6 and 10 years old. And I immediately thought this is probably not the best use of childhood fitness and activity incentivization, but yet everybody was okay in this. So my basic job is to help my patients be active and to understand when they're doing something stupid. And that, I thought, was probably something a little bit stupid. So how do you do that? And so when I see somebody, we see a couple different categories of injury. Number one is what's called an acute traumatic injury. So I just got a call on Sunday, actually in Iceland, from one of my patients who's getting ready to be in the Olympic trials for gymnastics, who I've taken care of since she was quite small. And she landed and hurt her wrist, and so I was worried about an acute injury like a fracture. And so sometimes athletes need to know, be they an Olympic athlete or somebody just getting ready for whatever, is this twist of my knee that I did something that I really have to worry about, and how do I know? And then more commonly, about 90% of injuries in sport medicine are what we call overuse injuries. So it's not one thing, but it's I've been training for the marathon and my shins start to hurt, or my knee starts to hurt, or I'm swimming a lot and my shoulder hurts. And how do you recognize when one of those injuries is more serious? And the answer is when pain changes your mechanic of movement, then I start to worry about those kind of injuries. So I'm going to just make some comments on running. I know here in New York City, This is certainly the most common. Who's a runner here? Let's see. We got some. Yeah, I know. And I see a lot of you runners in my office, and I'm sure out in California you have even more runners. And so I'm going to talk about running particularly and some of the common things that we do. And I'm just going to make a couple comments on running, and then we'll do some questions. So what does it take to basically make you a healthy runner? And I'm going to talk about gear, goals, injury recognition, and then lastly the important part, which is prevention of running injuries so you can keep moving. So we've seen a lot recently about this new trends and fads in running gear. And basically running is a great sport because it's so inexpensive. All you need to do is buy a pair of running shoes. Just curiously, who's read the book Born to Run? Several in the room. And so the concept of this book was to basically less is more. That by minimizing or giving you a minimalist pair of shoes, or even this shoe on the left here called the Newton, which tips you forward a little bit, you can basically shorten your stride and quicken your cadence. And the answer is that we think that's probably true, that having a higher cadence and a shorter stride is much less injury producing. So what you should be doing is you don't need to be buying minimalist shoes to do that. Just try shortening your stride and quickening your cadence. And certainly some shoes, such as like the 5-finger toe shoes, can help make that happen in the short term. And I can answer questions about how to know if you want to do that or not. But the overall concept is a shorter stride and a higher cadence is a good thing to start thinking about for basically reducing your risk of running injury. What about goal setting? Well, I think goal setting is very helpful. And some of the problems we see from goal setting are, first of all, people not setting goals at all. So you definitely want to give yourself a goal, whatever that is, a 5K race in the park. You're lucky to be living in New York. I was surprised how great the sports scene is in New York. For those in California, they're kind of spoiled because they can roll out of bed and go do a big bike ride right out of their door. But we have amazing sport resources here in New York, and probably the best running club, the Roadrunners Club is probably the best road running club in the world. And just amazing races every weekend all over the place. And so it's been a great place to do. So you want to give yourself a goal. And the concepts are some of these charity programs have convinced people you can train for the marathon in 3 months and not get hurt. And the answer is that, unfortunately, that's a huge part of my business, even though I try and teach people how not to come in to see me. But unfortunately, these people say, all right, I can do the marathon in 3 or 4 months. And the answer is that most people can't. They get hurt because they don't have enough base training or experience, and they've not gone through the building phase of how it takes to build strength and bone strength and muscle strength, which we'll talk about next. Now, what this guy taught us was that basically not every body is built for everything, and some bodies are built better for some sports than others. And so if you have a running body, and for girls that's probably, or women, that's probably about 5'2", 90 pounds, and for men it's about 5'6", and 120 pounds. And if you don't have that body, which basically almost nobody does unless you're an amazing Kenyan marathon runner, then you have to change the way you train and change the way you think about what you're going to do. Now, I think nothing I can tell you illustrates this point as well as this video, which hopefully this will work. This comes every year in Japan. They have the running of the sumos, and these guys are built exceptionally well for sumo wrestling, but they're not built very well for running. So we're going to see what this looks like, hopefully. Oh, come on, dude. I got to pull out the sumo. I'm sorry. I won't pull out all, but I got to pull out the running sumo. Where is he? Here he is. So this is what the running sumo looks like. And the concept of the running sumo, which is pretty dramatic footage. In Japan, they do all kinds of interesting stuff, and having their sumo wrestlers run down the street and videotape them is one of the interesting things they do. So this guy's really not built for running, I'm sorry to tell you, all right? That's not what you want to look like. This guy's built great for sumo wrestling, but he's not built for running. And so the concept of this is that not every body is built for every activity, and basically Darwinian selection will kind of tell us what you're built for. So the concept is the further you are from the idealized running body, the more problems you're going to have. So the optimal training program, as far as I'm concerned, is a gradual build, some combination of mileage and strength training, and cardiovascular training all the while. You can't run every single day. Nobody can. And you want to have a good time. So let's talk now about injury, which is kind of the thrust of what the book's about recognizing and preventing injury. And so I want you to think about when an injury is serious. And the answer is if it's a baseball player, if it's a runner, if it's a swimmer, a gymnast. I ask my patients the same thing of any age. And I take care of people from kind of 8-year-old elite level gymnasts to kind of 85-year-old lady that ran the marathon this year. And the commonality between all these is they want to be active and move. And I want them to be active and move. So when an injury is serious, is it changes your body's ability to do the sport regularly. So if you can throw a baseball well, but then your elbow hurts because you're throwing the baseball improperly, I want to see you. If you're running and your shin is hurting so much you can't run properly, I want to see you. So the mechanic of movement and the change in the pattern of mechanic of movement is really the key issue that I see when an injury happens. And so when it comes to running, I want to talk to you about three things: training, and your anatomy, and the biomechanical factors that go into injury. And I'm going to pull out a couple of these videos to show you. Now, the overall concept I'm going to kind of impress upon you is what's called the kinetic chain of the body. And so you kind of learn the song like the shin bone is connected to the hip bone, connected to the knee bone, and the answer is that's true, that all the bones are connected, and we can't change your anatomy. So if you're built a certain way because your grandparents and their grandparents and their grandparents all the way back, that's who you are, all right? I can't change how much cartilage you have in your knee. I can't change if you have a bulging disc in your back. I can't change if I can't change those fixed anatomical factors. What I very much can change, and this talk is a lot about empowering you to change this, is you can change your kinetic chain. And that is the muscular forces around those bones and ligaments and tendons and muscles. The muscles are the dynamic stabilizers. The stronger your muscles, the stronger your kinetic chain. So if you have plantar fasciitis or iliotibial band syndrome, part of what we do with you is get you started on a good functional strength training program to strengthen that entire chain. And as that chain gets stronger, your pain will go away and stay away. So the answer is, if your back hurts from a bulging disc, don't sit on your butt. The answer is start to work on strengthening. And that's a lot about what this book is about and what I'm going to talk to you guys about. So injuries happen. I'm just going to push ahead. I don't care if I'm in pain. I'm not listening to my body, and all of a sudden injuries happen. And that's often how injuries happen. And they can be overuse injuries of the tendon, such as this Achilles, which has a big thickening in the tendon, like a partial tear. MRI has been very, very helpful to help us diagnose these kind of injuries. This is a big crack in the hip. This is somebody with a stress fracture. Just saw one of those this morning, somebody training for the Ironman who got a stress fracture in their hip. Again, this is not an acute injury, so you won't know you have this. You'll know that the more you do, the more pain you're having, and the pain is changing how you move because it hurts so much, and that's when you got to get it checked out. So let's now talk about prevention, which is kind of the thrust of what this is going to be about. So what are the ways you can prevent injury? And first of all, you want to gradually build your training. We're going to talk about running form, and then lastly, we're going to talk about preventive strengthening and the role of preventive strengthening. So this graph kind of shows how much stress you're putting on your body and the frequency of how much you run. And the concept here is there's what's called the injury threshold: no injury and injury. And how do we take this line and push this out so you can basically have more frequency of running? We want that, all right? We want that line out there. How do we keep ourselves out here so we push that threshold out? And the answer is we're going to change how we run, and we're going to change how much strength we have. Those are the variables we can change. So when you think about running, basically you're never on 2 feet at the same time except for the start and the end of the race. And other than that, running is a series of plyometric jumps from one leg to the other. And there's no exact right way to run. But basically, what I can tell you is that I take care of both a number of triathletes and runners. And in my office, the triathletes are hurt much less frequently, even though they train about 4 times as much. And the answer is because they do much more functional training as part of what they do. So in this, I'm not going to pull these out and play them, but basically I have somebody here who's stepping down off a box. Let's make sure these are not going to work, but...
Okay, whenever you're ready, step down.
All right, not going to work. So she steps down off this small box, one side versus the other, and the one leg that's not hurt, she steps down very evenly. On the other side, her knee is all wobbly when she steps down. And the answer is that as she starts to wobble in that knee, the stability of her hips and her knee joint is affected. So she's not strong enough on the side she's hurt with. So if you're getting knee pain from running, the answer is you have to strengthen the muscles in the kinetic chain on that side of the body, particularly because what ends up happening over time is that this cartilage starts to rub on this femur bone, and you start to get a lot of achiness underneath your knee called runner's knee, which is pretty much the most common knee problem that I see. So how do we talk to people about improving their running form? And we talk about things such as running drills, running uphill. I love the concept of running uphill is you shorten your stride and quicken your cadence. And so you should be somewhere between 85 and 90 beats per minute, meaning the left or right foot should hit the ground 85 to 90 times per minute. Most people don't do that. Most people overstride. And so by shortening the stride and quickening the cadence, the landing force is much less. That's why the barefoot shoes make a difference even in some of the shorter training, is that you keep your weight over your forefoot to your midfoot instead of heel striking, which gives you a much shorter stride and a quicker turnover. So try running uphill and see how different it is. In fact, I teach an outdoor strength training class. I teach a strength training class every 2 weeks in Central Park. I don't know what time you guys get up, but we do it at 6:15 in the morning. And if anybody wants to come, please come up here afterwards and give me your email, and we'll send you our invitation to come try this thing. We have about 100 people at a time when we do this in Central Park, and it's a lot of fun. We do some combination of running drill and preventive strengthening called plyometric, which we're getting to next. So running drill number 1, preventive strengthening number 2. Stretching is way overrated, all right? So for all of you who are spending your whole life stretching, for running, way overrated. Strengthening is way more important. So we see a lot of people that stride out way, way too far in their running stride. And what ends up happening is they land with all their weight right on their heel, and they have all these different kinds of problems. So this, and I may pull this out to show you, but basically what we're doing now is much of this functional motion screen. And we're using a lot of the great stuff you guys are helping us develop, which is in medicine now taking the technology of what it looks like to move. And I'm going to, I know you guys will be into this, so I'm going to pull this out really quickly just to show you. I got to get him out of the way. I got to close him, he's too distracting. But just to show you what this looks like. So we're doing a lot more of this functional movement, and we can basically put markers on people and check where they're landing, how they're landing, where their maximum impact is. And many of our athletes that come in with these problems are essentially overstriding. So, you know, you can pay some, I don't know, like $150 or $200 to come to our hospital and get this done, or I can just tell you now, shorten your stride and quicken your cadence and do some strength training and you won't get hurt, and that's free. So try that first before you come up here to that. But that's the concept of using technology, which I think is pretty cool, to really make, you know, movement patterns a lot healthier and safer for people, which is, I think, really neat. And obviously you guys are so helpful with that for us. So as I mentioned, stretching way overrated, strengthening way underrated. So then let's lastly talk about this functional strength training and prevention to make you run better and much less injuries as well. So what I'm big into is this functional training called plyometric training. And plyometric training is basically using your body weight and rapid muscle contraction elongation to essentially build functional strength. It makes people faster. It makes them hurt less. It reduces the reaction force between your basically joints and the ground, so much less compression force. It protects your joints and your body. And most importantly, you don't need a fancy gym. You can do this anywhere. Now, when the book came out, I did this functional strength workout called Iron Strength. And so the way this thing is set up is it kind of talks about every injury, and then I have a whole section in the back called Iron Strength, which is this functional strength training workout and video. And the video, since this is a Rodale book, has a link on Runner's World, which is free. Just if you just type in Runner's World and put in my name or Iron Strength in my name, it will pull up and you'll see this Iron Strength workout online. And that correlates to the Iron Strength workout in the book. And basically what that's going to do is teach you how to do this functional strength training on your own. You just follow this along. The first month, January, this was up. We had, which for us it was impressive. I know for you guys are like, dude, that's nothing. But we had like 1.7 million unique views, which is that's pretty good, isn't it? Did I get a little nod for that? All right, thanks. I don't know if that's a lot. It seemed like a lot to me. So I was impressed with that. Runners are dedicated readers, voracious readers. So we had a lot of people looking at that stuff. And this Iron Strength workout is a really helpful tool, and I like it because it takes this and makes it so people can kind of use it on their own, which I think is pretty cool. So I want you to try this thing and then come try it live with us in Central Park. So lastly, I'll just kind of make a couple comments on this and answer some questions. So the concept of this is it's a kind of a full body resource. We did both an ebook and an iBook, and the Apple on the iPad we have the embedded videos, but the paperback is actually really neat, and I appreciate you guys having some people here, and I understand there's some kind of thing that ran out, but there's a way to get more. Rich will tell you about that at the end. I did bring one signed free copy for somebody, and the question is who's going to get the free copy, the signed copy, and the answer is who here has run more than 20 marathons? Anybody? Michael? 16. All right, anybody run more than 16 marathons? Michael, get up here, dude. You just won yourself a free autographed book. Congratulations. Good. If I hit it big time, it's signed. It'll be worth something Sunday. Now, for those of you, and I'm giving this to Rich, this actually just came out today. This is not related to this book topic, but it's a similar concept, and is that I did this thing with the American Academy of Pediatrics called Home-Based Strength Training for Young Athletes. It's basically encouraging parents to start strength training with their kids starting at age 8, and it's a high-repetition, lightweight training. In kids' sports, we're seeing problems of kind of youth sports specialization and increasing injury risk, and so we want parents, the best trainers are not professionalistic parents, and so I want parents to do this with their kids. Rich, who invited me, gets to take this home and start. How old's your daughter?
I've got 3.
Anybody old enough? Good.
The oldest is 9.
Perfect. All right. So the concept of kids doing strength training is something which is people think the answer is it's great. It starts to build bone density, functional strength, and it's a great thing to do. So enjoy that. So the concept of this book is to teach you guys how to recognize every injury you'll get. Number 1. Number 2, how you can take care of it at home on your own. And number 3, do you need to see a doctor? And then number 4, do you need surgery? And as you know, kind of the nexus of medicine and technology has been uniformly great. But for example, 50% of the population has a torn meniscus, 60% of the population has a bulging or herniated disc. Knowing when that herniated disc or torn meniscus is problematic and when it's not is very difficult for somebody who's not in medicine to know. And so what I really want to do is educate my athletic patients and athletic-minded people of how you can make the best decisions for yourselves, because Dr. Google, I'm sorry, gives a lot of information. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great, but a lot of it's out there. And so you guys do such a great job supplying information, but it's a lot of information, and helping people kind of disseminate what is helpful, I think, is very important for people. So with that, I would say please register for my site so you can stay in touch if you want. And I'd love to answer any questions about these topics or your own running-related issues or just sports in general or anything about the quality of life, health, and happiness. Who's got some questions for me? Don't be shy about your own injuries. Yeah?
What's, let's say, a shoulder injury for strength training?
Oh, I'm sorry, you got to go to the mic so they can hear. Oh, you're going to...
Sorry. For like a shoulder injury, doing strength training, what is the, what's the general guideline? These don't seem to be like, this never really fully goes away. So when do you start pushing again?
So some general concepts on what I'm after in this kind of book and video is a lot about what's called functional training. What does that mean? What it means is that, all right, if I just do bicep curls, I'm just strengthening my bicep, right? Or leg extensions on a leg extension machine, I'm just strengthening my quad. And for a long time, people did that kind of training, and many do at a number of gyms around the area. But the problem is it's not very helpful nor very efficient, and it seems to kind of not do much in terms of what's called functional. And so functional training is doing, like in our video, we have multiple body motions at the same time with high repetition, lightweight training. And so it's not like you're doing big weights, but it's high repetitions of a lightweight, which over time builds almost equivalent strength. And so the answer to a shoulder injury, depending on what it is it kind of get rid of the irritant in the shoulder. So sometimes we do injections of a little steroid into a bursa or whatever the problem is, and then do this functional training around the joint, and it's high repetition, lightweight training, which is almost counterintuitive to the way people think about training, and it really seems to change that kind of way that people do it. So you can effectively train, and in the shoulder particularly is very amenable to strength around it, and just knowing what to do should help a lot. So give it a try and let me know.
Yeah, I'm curious about recuperation from particularly like long distance running or specific workouts. So in particular, ice, the use of ice and ibuprofen.
Sure. So basically, inflammation is both a good thing and a bad thing. So inflammation is helpful when something gets irritated or inflamed. It's very helpful for us because it's a body marker. Hey, we got a problem here. When somebody does something, so there's helpful and hurtful inflammation. So an Achilles tendon, you go out for a long run, you get some Achilles tendonitis over time. If that goes on and on, it can actually start to, like a cavity, start to wear down that tendon, and you get tendinosis and then a chronic partial tear. So you get a whole kind of host of problems that happens over time if something's just chronically irritated. So there's chronic inflammation, and there's kind of something after doing a particular event. And the answer is that we love the George Costanza special, which is getting in an ice bath, which is a very helpful way to get in something cold for, if you can make it 5 minutes in an ice bath. And much like boiling a frog, though I've never done it, but what they say if you're going to boil a frog, which hopefully nobody here or in California ever has done, is if you just put the frog in hot water, it jumps right out. But if you put the frog in and gradually turn up the heat, it stays in there. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the story. And so with cold water and ice baths, it's the same thing. Get in there and start dumping some ice in, and over time, as the temperature lowers, supposedly, I do know that it's actually much more able to tolerate that. So I think for post-run recovery, anything over an hour and a half, nothing beats an ice bath. And so getting into a cold bath will definitely help expedite your recovery, as well as getting a carb and fat something in your body within a half hour, what's called the golden half hour after a big workout. So don't wait 2 hours, take a nap, and then go eat. You basically start to your turnaround will get quicker if you refuel that muscle glycogen within a half hour of your exercise. So those are the things: ice and getting that fuel in right away are the two really helpful things.
Are you against ibuprofen in general?
I'm not at all. I think basically for longer stuff, I guess there's what I do and what I say. What I say is, probably not a great idea for big doses for sure. If you want to pop one here or there, before you do stuff, I think that's probably okay. The problem with ibuprofen and many of these are sold over the counter is they think, all right, well, it's like Advil, it's candy coated, I can just take that, but these are drugs, and if you take enough of those, you can cause a real problem. So a little bit here and there, I don't think is hugely problematic. A lot can be a big issue, but they can certainly cause ulcers too. So you have to be careful not doing lots of that stuff on an empty stomach.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
So you and everybody else says walking is a great way to just stay in shape without having to put a phenomenal amount of effort in. I don't like walking. I like bicycling. Is that just as good?
So that's a great question. And the answer is that I generally find people are the most compliant with their exercise prescription if they like what they're doing. And so if they feel like I have to run because this guy told me I have to walk or run, but I hate it, I love biking, then they're going to not do it. And anything is better than nothing. In the relative scale of expenditure, hard running is the most time effective per whatever you can do, a hard run. But if you're like hating every step and you're not pushing yourself, terrible for you. So if you can it's all about getting your heart rate up. And if you can push your cardiovascular threshold and really get your heart rate up and move by biking, then that's terrific. And the number of places to do this. If you like it and you'll do it, that's a great way. And I do think the merits of group exercise in like spinning particularly are very helpful. People will push themselves a lot harder if there's a group around. So that's why our strength training class is so much fun, is because everybody basically kicks each other's butt, which is helpful. It really makes it work a lot better. So if you can find that dynamic in a spin class or even a bike thing, you'll get much more cardiovascular out of that.
Hi, thanks for coming out today.
Sure.
IT band, just it is what it is. But to make that a general thing, are there any pains that you would say are okay to push through, or anytime you have a pain, should you just stop when it occurs?
Two good questions. That's the second part first. And so the pain issue is when your IT band pain is changing your running mechanic, then it's time to stop. If it's a little bit achy here and there, I don't worry about it. So my telltale thing is if pain changes your mechanic of movement is number one. Now, IT band is basically a muscle called the tensor fasciae lata muscle that runs on the outside part of your hip across your hip joint and your knee joint. And the typical person with IT band syndrome is somebody that comes in saying, I'm running about 2-3 miles or a mile, and about 10-15 minutes in, I feel like somebody's jabbing something in the side of my leg. And that's classic IT band syndrome. And the answer is number one, flexibility. So I have a whole thing in this iron strength workout section called the foam roller workout. And anybody friends with the foam roller? Several of you, good. And so the foam roller is a great at-home deep tissue massage that you can do pretty much every day to loosen up the muscle, the IT band, along the outside part of the leg. The second part then is building this functional strength. And in the book we have in our IT band section what's called the big butt bonus. And it doesn't mean your butt's going to get big, so don't worry, but it means your butt's going to get strong. And in the big butt bonus section, we have all these glute strengthening exercises to basically keep your pelvis stable. The video I didn't show you, this woman stepping down off the box, she was somebody who had a lot of IT band problems, and as she was kind of running, her hip was dropping on the hurt side, and her pelvis was unstable when she was running, and that caused some chronic IT band problems over time. So strengthening is hugely important. And the final thing is there's a little fluid-filled sac called a bursa, which can form between the tendon and the bone, and sometimes we have to give a little shot of cortisone in that IT band, just in that bursa. But again, if you don't fix the mechanical factors, it'll just keep happening. So IT band is very fixable. It's very frustrating for a lot of runners, but very fixable with the right stuff.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hi. What about an injury or a pain that is there only when you rest, not when you actually exercise?
That's easy. Keep moving. That's easy.
No, but like an acute pain.
Yeah.
Like, the sciatic.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon, actually. People go out, they work out, and they get some pains afterwards. And so it sounds like sciatic type pain. Here's my guess. When you're sitting on it, hurts the most?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So pain in the butt, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's happening is that the sciatic nerve, in the hip glute section, we have kind of two kinds of sciatic pain. Sciatic pain can come out of the back, and what happens is you get a bulging disc in your back, which pushes a nerve and shoots pain down your leg, and those hurt all the time. Or you can get basically the sciatic nerve running through the butt muscle, and the butt muscle, called the piriformis muscle, will squeeze that nerve after you've worked out and basically just shoot this pain down the back of your leg, especially when you're sitting on it. And again, A little bit of anti-inflammatory medicine can make that feel better, but the key is building a stronger butt. And the stronger your butt muscle gets, the less that muscle will want to squeeze on that nerve. And so you need a stronger butt, and that's the answer. And then the last thing is I have a whole bunch of stuff in there on some different stretching. The figure 4 stretch is helpful. That's one case where flexibility can make a difference to loosen it up. But to really fix it, you got to start doing some of the strength. Those plyometric jump squats, you will first hate them, but once you learn to love them, it will make this go away, I promise.
Okay, thank you.
I'm asking on behalf of my wife, who is a cardio junkie, but can probably do with some rest because she's worked herself into a really bad back situation. So what are some of the exercises you can recommend for somebody who really thrives on the adrenaline, thrives on the sweat, thrives on the cardio, but needs to back off a little bit?
All right, so we got a wife at home. My wife. So the wife at home is, all right, fair enough. So the wife at home, who's the cardio junkie, and I will say that just by way of this, that yes, there are junkies of exercise. Exercise junkies is a real thing, but as I always say, like I would rather somebody be addicted to exercise than anything. So be proud of your wife. But that being said, she's not doing enough functional training, and so the cool thing about this iron strength workout is I promise you, you're gonna go home, you're gonna earn a lot of brownie points at home here because you're gonna go home and say, listen, we're gonna try this together. And I promise you that when she gets through her like 4th set of burpees, she's gonna be having more cardio than she ever had doing the other stuff. So the nice thing about this is that it's both cardio and functional strength as well. But I generally find people who only do one set of thing without that kind of cross training built in get hurt all the time. And so this concept of total rest days, I really don't buy that so much. I think you can do less and more and different kinds of stuff, but I think the concept of functional training interspersed with cardio is so helpful. So I think try this and let me know. But she will thank you, and it's a huge workout. I mean, this will be as much a workout as running.
It's in the book?
Well, the pictures are in the book, and then the workout's online. That's at Iron Strength on Runner's World. All right?
Hi. Thanks for the book. My biggest problem with marathons is in the closing, last 3-4 miles, hamstring cramps. I don't know what it is that I'm doing wrong. I've done a lot of marathons. I've had some success, but I can't seem to fend that off.
Gotcha. So muscle cramping happens basically for 2 main reasons, and so I'll talk about both. Less commonly, but sometimes related to muscle cramping, is actually strength. So people aren't strong enough. So I think some of this functional training that I've been talking about will definitely help with some people. But actually, surprisingly, more commonly for muscle cramping, that's nutritional. And that when people think about nutrition and muscle cramping, people think, all right, I've got to eat bananas because I'm getting muscle. Who here has had bananas for muscle cramping? Everybody got force-fed bananas. And the answer is the potassium is BS. That basically, we don't have a lot of data. We have a lot of data on sodium and salt. And salt is the culprit for most people with muscle cramping. And so what I'm going to have you do is basically what's happening over time, I'm betting in your marathons, is you're not salt loading enough and you're not pre-salt loading. And when you start to get that lower salt, sodium hyponatremia, the first symptom is muscle cramping. So my bet is that you're what we call a salty sweater. Everybody in this room sweats a different amount and different concentration of sodium. And if you're a salty sweater, you know it, because when you're done with a longer run, you kind of look like, you should be like a human deer lick or something, right? You got that white stuff all over. Not a good look. So you're a salty sweater. So if you are, you need to basically give yourself more salt along the course. And so there, everything from pretzels to there's some of these little salt caps, and I want you to try some of those. And I bet you that with some strengthening and with the sodium, it's one of those 2 things, I'm betting. And you can try and experiment and see that if it's late in the race, usually it's just you're losing too much salt and you have not kind of built up. So you can actually pre-salt load the day before, in addition to your pasta, some extra salt. And then during your exercise more than an hour and a half, start putting some more salt into what you do. And then some races have, Gatorade makes a great product called Endurance Formula Gatorade. It's double sodium. And that has double salt, and that will help a lot in terms of sodium. So try some more salt, and I bet that makes a big difference for you.
Cool, thank you. Do you recommend salt caplets or just a standard salt packet?
The salt packets don't work because when you get sweaty, it just kind of disintegrates. So they make, a number of companies make these little, there's one called Salt Stick, there's one called Endurolite, and these kind of sodium-containing capsules, and you can just carry those along and pop 1 or 2 of those, and I bet you'll notice. And you can try and think, like when it's hot and humid, am I getting this more? Is it happening on cold? Because the cold cramping tends to be strength. The hot, humid cramping tends to be sodium.
Okay, thanks.
All right, sure.
Hi, just to follow up on the potassium. I've noticed a lot of my friends who play sports, basketball, football, they start drinking a lot of coconut water, coconut juice, and I just want to get your take on that. And then more generally, after you do like the functional training, the plyometric jumps, the burpees, whatever, what's your best thing to take in terms of recovery aside from eating right after, like amino acids, protein, etc.?
2 good questions. So first of all, the coconut water craze. I mean, I think coconut water is great. It's basically isotonic, so it's kind of not high sodium. It's kind of neutral. It's I think eating is fine. Coconut water is fine. If you like it, you're going to take it. It's probably a little more nutrient-rich, obviously, than water, which has essentially none. But it's not like a magic formula. And so people are always looking, I need this. It's not a this. I think just food is fine, too. But if you like that, there's no downside to it. And if you're going to take it, it tastes good, no problem. It's a little expensive, but no big deal. In terms of workout foods, fuels, I really don't like the kind of powders and all that. I know there's a whole big industry of these synthetic powders, but I just think anything that has like a half-life of like 6 years on the shelf is probably not a good idea. And so I think just natural occurring foods. I mean, get stuff that's on the perimeter of the supermarket. Like anything that's in the middle that doesn't expire till 2016, stay away from, I think, in general. And it doesn't matter. It's totally, much like the guy asked about biking, it's whatever you will take is fine for me. That it can be, scrambled eggs, it can be, yogurt and blueberries and granola, whatever it is you like, do it. And there's no magic answer to that. I mean, basically, natural occurring food, I think, is the best. Some combination of carbs and protein. But scrambled eggs, great. Anything you'll do is great. All right, no magic answer.
Hi, I'm trying to get back into a more aggressive athletic routine, and a bunch of chronic injuries are sort of resurfacing. Do you recommend, from a medical standpoint, establishing a baseline? I mean, whether it is trying to figure out whether it's a meniscus or a ligament or, whatever the joints are. I mean, is a baseline something to seek medical help with to then figure out whether it's getting better or worse?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the answer to that is that I would start doing stuff and start building some strength and see if there's like one pinpoint thing that's the exact thing every time. If it's kind of everything hurts because you're doing more, that tends to be kind of functional weakness. If there's one thing that's kind of actively limiting your ability to be active, then I would get that thing checked out. But I'm sure you have a meniscus tear. I'm sure you do, just because many people do. So, and if we get an MRI, it'll show up. And then what happens is people get surgery all the time because they have a meniscus tear in their MRI, and they're no better, and they've had a piece of their meniscus taken out, and they're actually worse off. And so, I think the key is to start doing some of the stuff I'm talking about, see how it goes, see what happens to that pain. If there's one particular thing that's problematic, then we can look at that further.
Okay.
All right?
Hey, Jordan. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
I try to bike at least every day to work to and fro, and I have lower back pains. What do you suggest doing, stretching before or after, or both?
Good question. So, bike, how far are you biking? Where are you coming from?
I do about 6 or 8 miles each way.
Oh, nice. You're coming from whereabouts?
Brooklyn.
So come over the bridge and stuff. So, number one is, back pain from biking can be a couple things. Number one, if you're doing serious biking, like this guy maybe, bike racing or stuff, bike fit is very undervalued for, kind of making your bike comfortable. If it's kind of commuter biking and you're going back and forth, which is a great way to get around, and I think getting around New York on bike I'm really excited for the bike sharing program, which is going to start in July here, which is going to be, you guys probably know about this stuff, but it's going to be terrific.
Great.
And I think that, I have a whole bunch of stuff in the book on what's called core strengthening, isometric planks to build up what are the core muscles around your middle. And most often bikers don't do enough middle strengthening. And so you kind of end up like an Oreo. You have this kind of soft inside. And so you got to start strengthening the middle. Those core muscles support you when you're sitting on your bike seat, and it makes that pain go away. So start some of the core blaster exercises I have, some of the core strengthening. You can do it at home. Try it, a few times a week, and I bet your back feels a ton better from that.
Okay, quick question. Post long bike, chocolate milk or coconut juice?
Take one of each. I mean, chocolate milk.
That's a bad combination.
Yeah, this probably is. I personally think chocolate milk is probably better because it's got a little more fat content, a little more carb content. So I think maybe during long ride, coconut water, and post long ride, I'd go chocolate milk.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Last question.
Hi. I don't remember if the book addresses this in detail. I read it a while ago. Any tips for running in heat? Because summer is much nicer here in New York rather than in California.
Yeah. So, running in New York City in the heat is a real issue. I mean, California is lucky in that sense, but, the biggest problem I see for people running in the heat is acclimatization. So I have many fewer problems with people running in the heat in August than I do in June when we get a hot day when it's been kind of cool. So the body takes about a week to 10 days to acclimatize to heat. And so when it gradually builds up over time like it is now here, you need a little more hydration. You probably need a little more salt. You need to kind of prehydrate. You have some of these more commonly muscle cramping related issues. But in general, your body gets used to, it acclimatizes to heat over time. The problem is if you're up here and you say, listen, I'm going to go for a getaway to Miami, and it's kind of 45 here and it's 80 there, and you get off the plane and go for a 10-mile run. And those are the people that end up with a lot of kind of more significant, you go run a Miami half marathon, that weekend, I always see people the next couple days with bad muscle tears because they've just been running in the cool and they're not acclimatized. So heat tends to be a problem with acclimatization, and then some of the sodium and some of the dehydration stuff as well.
Thanks.
All right, so I just want to say in conclusion, thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I know I was competing against Justin Bieber on Friday, but you learned some good stuff here. So I really appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.